go ahead and get to our last topic, NCAA football. Now, woof! There's a lot going on in NCAA football.
Definitely.
So I'll let you go ahead and start off with the BYU Arizona State.
Okay, the reason why I wanted to talk about this game is because there's two things that happened that I want to get your thoughts on that were towards the end of the game. So, BYU was losing to Arizona State. That was the final score we talked about at the beginning, 28-23. But towards the end of the game, Arizona State had the ball. They were driving the field. They were doing just fine. BYU was not stopping them. They got inside the 20. I think it was inside the 30 towards the end of the game. Here's the thing. They started to play the clock game where they said, instead of scoring, we're going to run out the clock. But there was no guarantee with the amount of timeouts that BYU had, the 2-minute warning, or whatever they're calling it now, that they would be able to run out that entire clock. So they started the hike. The quarterback would run back, so they lose yardage, all this kind of thing. End of the game. I'm going to get to this part, and then I'm going to tell you the second part here in a minute. End of the game. Arizona State hikes the ball. The quarterback, there's 7 seconds left. He throws it from, like they're at the 50, because they moved all the way back. Mm-hmm. Throws the ball out of bounds. Obviously, the clock does not stop until the ball hits something. So it's got to hit the ground, hit the player, whatever it is. Hits the crowd, 1 second left. And that was on 4th down. So it gave the ball back to BYU. Now, before I get into all the mess that happened at the end, here's my question to you. As a coach, if you're driving the ball well, why not score to make it a 2-score game, knowing they are not going to have enough time to go down and score twice, and then just, that's your end of the game. Instead of playing this clock thing. Now, the announcers kept saying the same thing. Like, why are we doing this? Why are you doing this? Because you risked a Hail Mary. Here's what happened. BYU threw a Hail Mary with that 1 second left. They caught the ball, but at the 2-yard line it got tackled. Mm-hmm. If they would have got in, that ends the game. So, as a coach, I want to know your thoughts. Do you go in and score, or do you try to eat the clock when you're not sure if you're going to be able to eat the entire clock?
I mean, it's definitely situational. You know, I'd have to see the time. I'd have to see when the timeouts are going. I'd have to see how the players are playing, if they're getting their yards, running or not. You know, there's a lot of factors. This is not an easy answer at all. But in the simplified answer, yes, you 100% make it a 2-possession game before you sit there and try to run out the clock if you know that there's no ability to run out the full clock. Yeah. Now, if there was like one more first down that they could get before the 2-minute warning hits or something, you know, you keep acting as if you're going to score in telling your players, go down as soon as you get the first down. You know, it's all situational.
Yeah, I understand.
But if you're in a situation where you're right there, let's say at goal line, you're at the 7-yard line, there's 2 minutes, 10 seconds left. So you know the other team has 3 timeouts and they have the 2-minute warning, and you have no more opportunities to get a first down. You best believe I'm going to run the ball the first play, going to run the ball the second play. Third and fourth play, I'm going to take what the defense gives me in order to score. Right. That'd be my game plan. You need to bump it up 2 possessions.
Yep.
Now, listen, I like to give people, you know, the benefit of the doubt.
I don't.
Being a head coach is a super hard decision, and ultimately, they still ended up winning. I mean, it was close, right? Yeah. It was close.
And it didn't need to be.
Yeah.
Now, I certainly understand that when you're a coach and you're seeing, but if you're driving the ball well, like you said, which they were.
Let me ask you this. Were they driving the ball well, still passing it? Was it running?
They're running the ball. Yeah.
Okay.
So they're eating the clock. I understand. You still, you chance a fumble, you chance a turnover. I definitely get that. I understand that. But my thought is go get in that end zone or get into a field goal. The field goal gets you to an 8. So they'd have to score a 2-point conversion in order to tie that game up. I didn't understand what they were doing. And I think, I understand what they were doing. I just absolutely did not agree. And I think the announcers were saying the same thing. Yeah. But they just didn't quite grasp it. So here's the problem. This leads to the second thing. It's not really a problem, but when the quarterback for Arizona State grabbed the ball, 7 seconds left, instead of waiting an extra second or two, he got it and then chucked it. Now, my opinion, you're still in the box. There was not a wide receiver close by. You could have easily called intentional grounding. I don't know why they didn't. I honestly don't. Because he threw it into the stands. Like, the crowd caught the ball. Now, when he threw it, the ball goes and it lands in the stands, and all Arizona State fans rushed the field because they thought the game was over.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
So the refs like trying to wave everybody off and saying, no, wait. Like, BYU don't leave the field. Arizona State don't leave the field because we need to look to see when this ball hit. The ref was checking the replay with 10,000 people on the field. On the field. And then he said, no, there's 1 second left. Arizona State's coach obviously loses it, which I understand. I get it. But then you have to they probably spent 20 to 30 minutes getting all of the students off of that field. And all of them went to the sidelines where the players were and then off to the back, standing in the area. Obviously, when they won again, they re-rushed the field.
Yeah.
But there's always been the question of even basketball games, football games, should they be storming the field? And even in this case, they actually lowered the goalposts before the game was over because they thought the game was over. They were afraid the students were going to steal it and rip it out of the ground. So they had to put them back up when they got to that 1 second. So
I mean, here's the question here. How are you going to stop 10,000 students from rushing the field?
Yeah.
You know,
Unless you just make it illegal to where you just can't do it anymore.
Okay, making it illegal. Now what? 10,000 people rush the field. Do you think you have enough security to arrest 10,000 people?
They obviously didn't. No.
I mean, you don't have enough security to stop 10,000 people from getting onto the field. Listen, it's a tradition that I love seeing it if it's within time, if it's for good reason. You know, there's a lot of, I feel like rushing the field this season, it's like every other game, some team is rushing the field. It's like, okay, like you rush the field if you're like a Vanderbilt team that beats Alabama. Right. Like, I can see that. That's, right. Whoa, we never beat Alabama, and they beat one of the top dogs. I can see that situation.
Yep.
If you're a ranked team and you beat another ranked team, it's like, why are you rushing the field? Like, okay, it was a close competitive game. Okay, you maybe weren't supposed to win the game. It's not that crazy. Now, Arizona State, BYU, I know it was a close game. It's kind of wild a little bit, but Arizona State is a team that's supposed to be making the playoffs for the college team. Yeah. I mean, in the new brackets coming out, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. Yeah. But BYU was also a team that was up there. It's like, I wonder, back in the day, if a Georgia beat an Alabama, did they rush the field afterwards? Like, that was a good game, sure. It doesn't mean you have to rush onto the field for it. We got to pick and choose our moments to rush the field. Otherwise, rushing the field's not going to mean as much.
Yeah. Here's my opinion. Rush the field. Just do it.
Go for it.
Rush the court in basketball when you beat a big team. I mean, I got to think of... I didn't go to a college where if we won a game it even mattered. Most people didn't even go to the games. Yeah. But I think if I was going to an IU or an Ohio State or whatever and you play a big team and you win, I don't know. I think that's a moment in a college student's life that they'll never forget.
Well, I got one for you.
Okay.
When I was at Ball State took on Notre Dame, and Taylor Parsons pulled up a 3-point buzzer beater to beat Notre Dame at our home court, and we didn't even have enough students to rush the court. There was a handful of us there, Isaac, and we did not rush the court.
Did you go?
I went. Okay. I was in the stands. It was literally the only game I went to as a Ball State student.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And it was a great moment. I'll remember it forever. I recorded the big moment on Snapchat and everything. You know, I'll keep that memory with me forever. We did not rush the court. You know why? Because I believe at the time we were 1-6 for Ball State, and now we're 2-6. It's not like we're going to be going to a playoffs or anything, but it was a huge game. Yeah. It was fun to be a part of.
Let me ask you this question. If there was enough students there and they did rush the court, would you have gone?
Me personally, I probably still wouldn't have rushed.
Oh, come on.
I still wouldn't have rushed the court, no. Because Ball State still sucks.
Well,
Ball State still sucks.
But they still had a big win. I mean,
it was a big win, but it meant nothing in the grand scheme of things. And if it meant anything, it was like we got really lucky. That's what it felt like.
True.
So I mean, it was cool, but
all I say it was an interesting game. It was a very interesting end to that game because of the way that everything just kind of fell apart, and then just watching I don't know how many people it was, 20,000 people on a field, and trying to get them off the field. I've never really seen that before. And I also fear, we can move on to the next point because it's taking too long, but I also fear the opposing team's players when you have students rushing onto the field.
Yeah.
Because you can have some jackass, fraternity boys that are going to,
don't come at us fraternities like that. Okay, hold on. I'm offended.
Okay, some immature gentlemen come up and rub it in the face of the person that just lost.
Yeah.
And, let them off the field.
Well,
safely let them off the field.
I just want to, quick note, did you see the California video where California students rushed the field after Cal won and whoever they played against, and one of their fans rushed over the sideline and tried to steal one of the helmets out of the equipment basket or whatever, and their equipment manager chased the dude down all the way across the field, grabbed him and suplexed him on his head, and then pushed him away and snatched back the helmet. I mean, you have people protecting these things. Now,
True.
protecting the players.
Yeah, I just want to be respectful. Just be respectful of the players if you are going to storm. I mean, that's a big point. Because, they're devastated. They just lost a game, and they don't need you coming up and clapping in your face because
absolutely
that's not good. That's not
so good. Let's go ahead and get into this crazy bracket of SEC real quick. So I mean, we'll start off with the headlining. In my opinion, Oklahoma beats Bama, makes Bama 8-3. Oklahoma was not supposed to beat them. I mean, they were barely breaking even on the season, and they step in and they beat them pretty convincingly. Now, the big talk is, could there be an SEC team that makes the playoffs with an 8-3 record? So Texas leads the SEC at 10-1. They're for sure going to be in. They're already set to be having a bye week.
Yep.
Georgia and Tennessee are both 9-2. In my opinion, I think they're in the bracket currently for the playoffs, but they're in at 9-2. Finally, you have Texas A&M. You have South Carolina, you have Alabama, you have Ole Miss, and you have Missouri all at 8-3. All of those teams, and I just want to do a note here, all of the losses for everyone, Texas, Georgia, Tennessee, and then the 5 teams that I just named at 8-3, all of them besides Texas A&M only lost to a team that was in the SEC already. Texas A&M, notably, lost to Notre Dame, who's also in the playoff bracket. Right. So all of these teams have lost to other teams that are worthy of already being in the playoff bracket. Sure. I'm going to kind of mix this with our third point of the NCAA. How does that size up to teams like Arizona State, like Boise State, who are in the playoffs? And I know it's probably not going to be a popular opinion. Why is Boise State a team that we are talking about when it comes to the playoffs as being one of the teams with a bye week?
Right.
Not just barely squeaking in.
Number 4.
IU is 10-1. They just lost to Ohio State, big team. Now Boise State is also 10-1. They lost to Oregon, number 1. But IU is in the Big Ten. They're facing Big Ten teams. This is a prestigious conference.
Right.
Boise State is in Mountain West. I mean, who do they play? San Jose State? Hawaii? I mean, what are we doing? Why is Boise State... someone tell me something that I don't currently know. Why are they the top talks of being in the playoffs? I know they have the running back who's up for Heisman. They're a dominant team. Now, they haven't really dominated too many of their people. I think their last game against Wyoming, they won it 17-3 or something like that.
Right.
So it's not like they're even dominating the teams that are in their conference. But the only team that they've beat this year that has any type of notoriety is UNLV, who at the time was ranked number 22. That's besides Arizona State as well, who just squeaked in after beating in BYU. Now they're in the talks of being in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Arizona State lost to Cincinnati. They lost to Texas Tech. Now, who have they beaten? They just beat number 19 BYU, and they also have beaten number 24 Kansas State. I mean, these are teams. I would take any of the SEC teams that I mentioned before against a Kansas State, against a BYU, against Arizona, against Boise State. I just don't necessarily understand. I can see them, being in the playoffs, but why are they already a team pushed to the bye week?
Bye week, yeah. That's a good question. Here's my thing. I don't know how you fairly do this, and I'm just being completely honest, because yes, when they expanded it from 4 to 12, that did help because you got more teams in the playoffs, but what are you going to do? Expand it to 32 teams? I mean, at that point, it doesn't even matter. Like, you're not even really... You're making the season almost like it doesn't matter when you're doing stuff like that. So, I'm with you. I think there's teams that deserve to be in there. Now, obviously, we still have a couple games to go, so we don't know exactly what the bracket's going to look like. But
yeah, I mean, Arizona State is about to take on Arizona, which last year they lost miserably to them. So, yeah. Arizona State already could be pushed out.
Right. But, so, again, I think there's teams that should be in. I don't know how you make it fair. I really don't. I mean, they made this automatic bid thing, but also based off the ranking as well. But even that's kind of confusing with how they do it. So, I wish I had the exact answer. But
I mean, it's tough. I know it's tough. But
at least,
a team like Boise State, come on.
Here's the thing, though. At least they're trying something, because before they just almost kind of guessed who was going to play in all these specific bowl games, and then in the championship game, you didn't really have a definitive reason why somebody was going in there.
I mean, it was ranking. It was the top
but then you also
teams.
but then the championship games, a lot of them were lopsided. I mean, people would get killed, and it wasn't fun to watch.
I think it was. I mean, here's the thing. Here's the big idea behind all this. In all honesty. The SEC bracket is full of just killers.
Yeah.
1 through 7 team in that conference is killers. And, you could take the 7th best team in the SEC. If you threw them into the Mountain West Conference, that 8-3 record turns into a 11-0 record.
Sure.
And so, why are we punishing teams for being in such a prestigious conference? That's what this bracket almost feels like.
Well, are you speaking to more to maybe that we need to realign these conferences?
I mean, not necessarily. Just realign the reasoning behind putting people into these playoffs. I think that even if you're 8-3, if your 3 losses came to teams who could easily be ranked top 20 in the NCAA football league, that should 100% be factored in. If you're a Boise State team who the only tough teams that you faced all year is Oregon and UNLV, and you lost to Oregon, you beat UNLV, why are you in past a Texas A&M team who lost to Notre Dame and then lost to 2 more SEC teams who are part of the top 10?
Well, you make the same argument with IU. I mean, IU's in the game. They lost to Ohio State. But they haven't faced a ranked team the entire season.
Exactly. So, in my opinion, one of those SEC teams, the Texas A&M, South Carolina, Bama, Ole Miss, Missouri, I would much rather see them in the spot for IU.
Right.
But I would much rather see IU in the spot than Arizona State or Boise State, because they are still in the Big Ten.
Right.
And the conference does hold prestige. I know Arizona State is in the Big 12, which there's some solid teams out there in the Big 12 as well. But the Mountain West Conference, I mean, come on. That's like the MAC Conference. That's like facing Ball State, Toledo, Eastern Michigan. I mean, because I understand they are a good team when you go and watch them, but you have to look at the competition they are facing, and it's not as good as an SEC team. So how could you justify? Think of it this way. I mean, Texas is in, Georgia's in, Tennessee is in currently. You have Missouri, Ole Miss, Bama, South Carolina, Texas A&M all on the cusp. Mm-hmm. Only one of them will probably get in if an 8-3 team gets in.
Right.
Can you really justify a Texas A&M or a Bama or an Ole Miss or a Missouri not getting in and a Boise State having a bye week?
Right.
That just doesn't make sense to me. Yep. I guarantee you if they had Boise State on the regular season, Boise State would not be in the playoffs.
Yep. I think the hope is, and I really hope that the NCAA is open to adjusting how they do this. Now, obviously, they went from 4 to 12, so they have adjusted that part. But will they look at it objectively and say, hey, yeah, this isn't quite working, or this doesn't make as much sense. Maybe we need to make a few adjustments. And I don't know. Well, time will tell. But I don't think this year we're going to see a fair way of doing it. It's just not going to happen.
Well, ultimately, there's only going to be one team coming out on top.
Yep.
There's only going to be, I talk all this crap about Boise State, but what happens if Boise State faces freaking Ohio State in the second round when their bye week comes up and they end up beating Ohio State? I don't think it's going to happen.
Probably not.
But it's a possibility. It's a possibility. So I don't want to mark them out yet, but this is the same instance that I believe we just saw with Army, the same instance that we just saw with IU, where a team is taking on all these teams that have no notoriety, and then they step in the ring with the big dog, and the big dog shows them why they're the big dog.
Right.
I think that's what Boise State's going to do in this playoffs. I think that's what kind of Arizona State's going to do too. I mean, they just beat BYU, but should BYU have been there in the first place?
Sure.
A lot of questions to be answered.
Yep. Great conversation, though. I think it's great to talk about.